Hi, everyone. There's a lot of debate about how people will react in any sort of disaster type situation. And it's basically an educated guess because we just don't know how things are going to unfold. It'll be different in short term type situations, it'll be different in those medium, natural disaster type situations. And as you get into the longer scale type situations, it's really tough to figure out because there's so many different variables that go into that that you really, I mean, it depends on how everything unfolds, how people are going to react. Now, there, with that being said, it's pretty easy to kind of guess at how people are going to react in certain different situations. And, I hear all the time, this is one of the reasons we get labeled as preppers, we get labeled as crazy, is because I hear all the time about how people are, in general, people like to help each other. And I completely agree with that. In natural disasters and stuff like that, there's always people trying to help other people out. It's human nature to help rebuild and help each other out. But there's a huge caveat to that, and that is that that's only possible when people have the means to take care of themselves first, and they're able to help everybody else out. When things start to, deteriorate, that help it's not going to be there like people think it would be. I think of this kind of like a traffic jam. Most people who drive on the highways are they're great drivers, right? But it only takes one or two of those drivers to, maybe they're merging wrong, maybe somebody's going too fast, somebody's going too slow, and they cause problems for everybody else on the highway, or a traffic accident. All it takes is one person to make a bonehead move and screw everything up for everybody behind that. So while most people, my whole point here is, while most people are, it's in their nature to help other people out, all it takes is one or two. All it takes is a small percentage of people to mess everything up for everyone else. The best way to look at how people might react too is looking at past events. You've got the Revolutionary War. There was only 3% of the people who thought it was a good idea to separate from England. The rest of them were, hey, this is status quo, we just need to go with it. You've got the situation going on in Venezuela right now, the situations in China. All of this stuff we can learn from and figure out how people are going to react in any certain situation. So what I kind of want to do is go through the different time frames, as well as, while I'm doing that, the different levels of disaster, whether that be the small scale stuff like civil unrest, power outages, stuff. By small scale, I mean it's not going to last a very long time. And then you've got the medium type stuff that, the critical infrastructure, the natural disasters, stuff like that, that could paralyze us, or, cause problems for a month, maybe longer. And then the larger scale stuff, the EMPs, the economic collapses, stuff like that, it could be years before something happens. So let's just go ahead and start with day one. In the first day, the first couple of days, depending on the type of disaster, I think this is where, most people are going to be kind of reactionary. They're going to be wondering what's going on. There's confusion. They're going to be talking to other people, trying to figure out what's going on. A small scale type situation, say it's a civil unrest type situation, they're going to be looking for information and trying to avoid that and seeing what they can do. Power outages, stuff like that, they're going to be trying to help. In a natural disaster type situation, depending on where you live, I think most people understand what needs to be done in that type of situation. But there is a variable there with that medium type situation that you just don't know how things are going to unfold. Look at Katrina, for example. People thought that this is the way it should be handled, and it didn't get handled that way at all. And it took quite a bit longer, and there was a lot more problems than people expected. Then you get into the large scale type situations. In the first day of this, say an EMP, for example, people aren't going to know what the hell is going on. We might, but the average person, it's just a power outage. It's, wait and see what the government tells us what we should do or what we should expect. But for us, in a situation like this, that medium or large scale, this first couple of days is an opportunity for us to kind of get our ducks in a row and get everything done while we have that little window to get that stuff done. And that doesn't mean going to the grocery store. We should have that all taken care of. Let the other yahoos go do that. But getting our family together, getting our supplies organized, straightened out, all that stuff, this is our window to do that. If it turns into a bug out situation, this is where we need to look at our plan and figure out, do we go, do we stay, what do we do here? So this is that window that we can take advantage of. It gives us a little bit of an edge where the average person is just going to be kind of, not wondering what's going on. Maybe they're in denial. It's just that situation where we have a little bit of an edge if we take advantage of that. Now, once you get up into the week or, a week to a couple weeks, that's where it begins to, that's where that in the beginning when I was talking about how people will help each other out, that's where that begins to kind of tail off. And this is where there's also more variables about how people are going to react, because you have the turds is what I call them. You have the 3-4%, 5% of people that are going to take advantage of a situation like this. And they're the looters, the rioters, all of that stuff. Those people you're going to have to be concerned about. And the people that are trying to be helpful are starting to, either they're not going to be as helpful anymore because they don't have the means to do so, or they're starting to figure out that, hey, this could last a whole lot longer. I don't want to be giving away all my stuff. In a small scale type situation, this could be towards the end of it. But when you're talking, weeks, this is usually not a small scale type situation. It's usually a medium or a larger scale type situation. In a large scale situation, this is when things really start to get bad. This is when people are figuring out that there's no help coming along, and they start thinking about, what the heck am I going to do? How am I going to survive the coming months with stuff like this going on? The critical infrastructure, the hospitals, the police, the fire departments, all that stuff, the weight of the situation starts to bear down on that too. And it'll probably start to, become really difficult for people to get the things that they just expect these days. Once you get past a month, maybe a month to 3 months, the small scale situations aren't even in this type of situation anymore. This is that medium to large scale situation. If you've got some sort of natural disaster or power outage that lasts a month or longer, you're looking at something that's pretty major. It could be, the water crisis in Flint, Michigan lasted for quite a while, but not near the situation, that I'm talking about with a month. I'm talking about a national type situation. In this type of situation, this could be the most dangerous part of any SHTF scenario, because this is when people realize that there's nothing that they can't do what they need to do, and they need to go out and figure out what they need to do to be able to support their families, to be able to get the things they need to just to survive. This is where they begin to understand that, hey, this help that we thought was coming is not coming. This is where, FEMA may be getting involved. Other countries may be getting involved. A lot of different variables with this. The UN may be getting involved. And, how does everything unfold with that? That's where it begins to get a little bit difficult. This is also where, you hear about the die-off all the time, probably right around that 1 month situation to, all the way up to, a year or so. That's where all of that stuff is going to start. And that things are going to get pretty hairy in a situation like that, depending on the disaster situation. That die-off, could take a few months, could take up to a year. And all the stuff that goes on in that situation is, it's up to us to keep ourselves safe. And that's going to be, I think, the most dangerous part of any type of SHTF type scenario. Now, once you get past, I think 6 months, 7 months, 8 months, somewhere in that time frame, a year, if you're looking at something like that, it's something major like an EMP that's happened, war, something really major has happened where it's a complete rebuild. And I think once you get past that first 6 months or so, I think you're going to see things. I think that's the worst. The worst is over. If you've survived that long, kudos to you, I suppose. You either got really lucky, you were really prepared, something along the way. Everything is going to get a little bit easier, I think, as time unfolds. And this is where the whole bartering, the rebuilding, people helping each other out, is going to come back into play after all of that danger was going on. But again, this is really tough to say something that lasts that long, because you've got government that is going to want to have their fingers on in control. Somebody, whether it's the current government or something set up as new, you're going to want those people are going to want their fingers in the pie. You've got other countries too that may be involved in that situation. So it's really tough to tell. It's kind of a by the time you get to 6, 8, 9 months, you're going to have things pretty figured out about, if you're still there, you're going to have things pretty figured out about how things are going to unfold and what's likely in the future. So really tough. It's cool to think about, because it's important to think about, because you just don't know how people are going to react. Now, the most likely situations are those shorter scale type situations, up to 3 months or so. That's the stuff that's likely to happen. When you start thinking about the year long, the couple years long, that is, they're possible situations, but they're really tough to prepare for, because there's so many different variables, so many secondary and tertiary events, that it's almost you can prepare as much as you can, but you have to go, as things evolve, you've got to be able to react to those. So it's really tough to say, one way or another, how you're gonna do things and how people are gonna react. So you've got all the prepper fiction and all that kind of go through that type of scenario, how people might. And I think that's why it's important to think about that stuff, because we need to be ready for different situations. I'd love your guys' thoughts on all of this, though, how you think, the human nature aspect of it, how people are going to react, what you think may be likely and all of that. Leave a comment in the comment section below. And if you haven't subscribed to the YouTube channel, make sure and subscribe. We'll be doing more videos like this here in the future, and also articles over at survivalistprepper.net. But anyway, that's it for today. Take care, everyone, and we'll talk to you later.